Hello everybody, my name is Aidan Crenshaw, and the presentation I'm going to be giving today is on recording hackathons and how to do picture-in-the-picture on the cheap. First of all, a little bit about me. I run IronGeek.com. Hope some of you all have been there at some point in time.
Awesome.
I need the traffic. I have an interest in InfoSec education. I don't know everything. I'm just a geek with time on my hands, especially when it comes to video. There's a lot of things I'll probably get slightly wrong. Someone who's big into video editing will say, well, no, you misused the term filter, or you're confusing DirectX, or Direct Show with video for Windows, or some little intricacy like that. So I could get a lot of those details wrong, but hopefully this talk will give you just enough information to make videos similar to the ones I've been doing for my website. I'm also an irregular on the ISD podcast, every Thursday night, generally speaking, and also on special occasions. We had a podcast last night that we recorded in the party room. Okay, so the core topic for this presentation is how do I make these? And I'm actually going to go grab some of my equipment that I have and be right back.
I don't want to watch that.
I was waiting for someone to make a wise-ass comment. I'm one of those guys that probably doesn't even need the microphone, but it helps with recording. Now, I do various videos, go to hackathons, also record classes that we do with the local ISSA, and I end up trying to make something that looks a little bit like this, where you have the speaker in one corner, of course the slides in another, and the main body. And I really like doing it this way, because how many people have seen like recorded videos of presentations and you had no idea what the hell was in the slides, because it was just way too blurry. And I know another guy who goes around to cons and records it, and he once told me that he gets better image results by putting a camera on the screen, and I did not with the crap I had. Maybe you have some really bad capture devices and some really bad VGA to S video adapters. That might be the case, but I'm going to show you how I produce videos that look something like that. And we're also going to do a partially live demo of me rendering, hopefully, the video that was just recorded by Skydog. All right, first of all, a little bit about what hardware I use and Skydog uses. We have slightly different rigs. For this conference, pretty much all the video equipment, except for one converter, is all Skydog stuff. And he has it set up to where it's a science. You just throw it down and you get up and running. One of the biggest issues putting all this stuff together at a conference or a class is the tons and tons of crap wiring that you end up getting braided together before the end. And so it ends up taking a while to set up. The core things you need to record videos the way we've been doing them is, at least the way I've been doing it, I need a laptop, because I do my captures straight to a laptop as far as the slides are concerned, using a capture dongle. You're also, of course, going to need a video camera, and despite the fact these two, this bullet point kind of got combined together, you also need a USB video capture device. Now, the one I usually use is about $20 from Deal Extreme, and it does a decent job. What can I say? You also need a VGA to S video converter. Now, my current one, you can see later on, is hooked up there. It looks a little something like this. And what that does is it takes a VGA signal in and throws out S video. Why? Because S video capture devices are a lot cheaper than straight up VGA capture devices. I think some of the cheaper ones I saw for straight up VGA capture were like $300-400. This adapter's $20. And it still gives decent results, just not as crisp as you can get. But I use this to convert it to S video, and this little box is about $30. Then I throw it into a capture dongle, which is costing me another $20, and into a laptop. Now, the way Skydog does it is a little bit different, and he's got it refined to where he just throws down his box, and his box has a bunch of little VMates in it. And these VMates can take a composite in and record to an SD card. And then you get some MP4s off that you can just mess around with. And it does simplify things a whole lot. The problem is, composite, you don't get quite as good an image quality as you do with S-Video. So S-Video is a big drop from VGA, and composite is somewhat of a drop from S-Video. However, it does make things a hell of a lot more convenient than having a laptop out there. And there's so much laptop capture software that is buggy as hell. I found this out in video in general. You'll start rendering a video, get halfway, a third away through it, and it crash on you. And you have no idea why. It doesn't give you any kind of real useful information. So the the VMates are a big help for that. As far as recording, the camera I have is just a fairly crappy ApeTech Doesn't do really good low light. A few tips I do have for you if you ever decide to record these. A lot of mine, I don't mic the speaker. It's really nice to mic the speaker to get rid of ambient sound and get better audio quality. And another thing is, a lot of my cheaper cameras, he's got a better camera as far as video quality is concerned, probably with low light. But even with those, if you can get a light on the speaker, it helps immensely. Now, you'll see some of my videos, especially the password class, where Alex and Martin are barely visible because of how dark the room is. Alright, and I talked a little bit about the VMate. Setups. Now, my core setup is essentially I have a camera that's recording separate, just sit there, stand alone. And then I have the presenter's laptop hooked up to that VGA to S-video adapter. Then the S-video adapter is running into my USB capture device. And then that's going to my capture laptop. And it's captured from there. And afterwards, I combine them together. Skydog's rig looks a little something more like this, except for it's a little more complicated because he has multiple VMates running, because he has the camera feeding into a VMate. He has the presenter's laptop running into a VMate. And he also has another side camera running into VMate, so he can get, a little crossing back and forth. He has a fourth one also where you mix that video and that video.
Actually, that was a mixer, and he would hook it up to the VMate, and you would slide the thing up and down, and he would switch the two cameras to one VMate, so it would merge two videos into one.
So yeah, his rig on that is just a lot fancier than mine. So that's essentially the hardware we have set up. Yes?
Are you splitting the cable that's going to the projector?
Oh, yes. Yeah, on both of our rigs, this VGA to composite or VGA to S-video, usually it has a way of, kind of a VGA mirror out of it that you also go hook off to the projector. So somewhere over here, you might have two VGA ports. One's in, one's out. And you're capturing off the S-video out, and the projector's hooked up to the VGA out. Anybody wants to see this later on, just carefully look at Skydog's rig, and I have some of my equipment here as well. Okay, now he's using VMates for capturing, which does simplify things a lot. I usually use Windows Media Encoder to do my captures. Why? Because it seems to crash less than anything else I've tried. As far as reliability, it means I'm getting WMV files out when I record, but they work just fine. It's fairly crisp. And if I remember to make all my settings correct, I usually do 25 frames a second. It's my camera does like 60 frames a second, which is actually 59 point something, which I don't really need that many frames a second. And the main reason I convert everything to 25 frames a second is it's just easy for me to do the math. Since if I know I need to delay something 4 seconds or add 4 seconds, I can just do it in my head real quick. Okay, 100 frames. Nice and simple. And I have good luck with Windows Media Encoder. I would provide a download link. Unfortunately, they seem to replace it with Expressions Encoder, which, so far when I played with it, I don't like nearly as well. Maybe it just takes a little bit more getting used to. But if you Google around for it, look around for the 64-bit version of Windows Media Encoder, and if you can't find any place, email me and I'll see if I can find you a copy. I don't think I can host it on my website since it is Microsoft stuff, but since it was released as freeware, I imagine distribution in between people should be no issue. Alright, another tool I use for a lot of my video, depending on what you end up getting the video from, sometimes it's not workable. Like sometimes I'll go to a con and I won't want to pack all my stuff to get on the plane, so I'll use someone else's camera there. But the video they throw out, I may not have all the right filters on my laptop to be able to figure out what to do with it. So I might throw it into AVIDemux and throw it into a different video format that I can work with. And AVIDemux is awesome for that. It's got various filters for resizing, cleaning up images. It's got things for subtitling. Though generally speaking, if I can do it, if I can throw the raw video into some of the scripts I'm going to show you here in a bit, I do that because it streamlines things. If I have to take the video from the camera, convert it into an AVI of a special format, copy out the audio, convert that to a special WAV file, then throw it all into my script, that's several extra steps. Computation-wise, it may be the same, but if I can eliminate as many steps that are human involved as I can, it just makes the process of rendering all these videos a lot easier. And luckily, I found some filters recently that's going to streamline the process of turning these videos, hopefully from today, into finished product. In previous years, I actually had to copy the audio back out and then back into my videos, for whatever reason, AVISynth was failing on it. And I found the right plugins now to make that work. Oh, VirtualDub is another thing I use. Sometimes I'm going to go back a slide. AVIDemux, for a while there, I would try to do my rendering in AVIDemux for the final product I'll be putting up on the website and make MP4s. Unfortunately, it doesn't directly work with AVISynth scripts, which I'll be showing here in a bit. There's like a synth server you can throw in there, but I had mixed luck with that. And there's actually a tool where you can take an AVISynth script and mount it as a part of the file system, and basically it shows this huge uncompressed AVI in a virtual directory. But even then, I throw it into AVIDemux, and everything would be upside down and backwards. Now, you can throw a filter on that will automatically flip it, but it's an extra step. Now, VirtualDub, it'll read AVISynth scripts directly. Your output's a little bit more limited. I'm saving it out as AVIs, and I'm going pretty generic, usually speaking. I'm using a straight-up Xvid and MP3, or lame, as an encoder, just because everybody seems to support it. The videos may not be as small as they could possibly be, but they said it's super supported. And VirtualDub also has a ton of different filters. VirtualDub also has a ton of different filters you can apply as far as resizing and messing around with the image. Another tool I use from time to time, especially when I've had problems with getting the video to work but not the audio, is I'd install Audacity, copy the video into Audacity, get just the audio. Then I can mess around with the audio, clean up noise in it, because Audacity has a nice noise remover feature, or just turn the video into some kind of sample rate and encoding that I can throw into an AVI script to make work. Luckily, I think I got enough things in AVISynth now to not even have to use this step. But it's still something you need to know about, because if you want to clean up sound like you had a really noisy auditorium where your microphone's right next to an air conditioner so you have that constant fan sound, you can get rid of a fair amount of that with Audacity. Okay. The main tool I'm using for all this is AVISynth. AVISynth is like a scripting language for video rendering and compositing. And it's really, really nifty. Essentially, you just run the script, and you can tell it what to do with videos and give you the final results. And I'll explain some of its functions here in a second. Another tool I've sometimes used in the past is AVISynth Virtual File System, which what you do is you right-click on the script, mount it, and it becomes like a virtual file system where you have an already pre-generated AVI that's probably gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes size, because virtually speaking, it's uncompressed. It doesn't actually put it on your hard drive, but the thing about this is tools that aren't designed to work with AVISynth can now work with AVISynth, because you use this tool to make it into a virtual AVI that pretty much any tool will work with. So it's just convenient for a lot of things. A tool I found recently, it's a plugin. There's also extra filters you can add into AVISynth by using plugins. And one of the plugins I found was that Be Happy plugin set, which allows you to mess around with audio, and allows the weird audio that's coming off these vmates to work directly in AVISynth without me having to make the intermediate step of throwing it into Audacity, which just streamlines the hell out of things. Okay, codecs and filters I need to install. Depending on what kind of video you're trying to throw into it, you're going to have the right codec on your machine. Generally speaking, you need FFD show to do MPEG-4 stuff right, along with Xvid. I usually do most of my encoding in Xvid just because it's a little faster. If I had my druthers, I would try to do X264 encoding and do 2-pass to get the best quality for the smallest size, but it takes a really long time. If I understand the process correctly, what the codec's doing in the background, we use X264, which is like an open source version of H264. It looks at the first time and the first pass and figures out where it can optimize. Then the second pass, it makes the smallest size possible. The way a lot of these compression codecs work is it looks for changes. For instance, if you have nothing but a black background and you try to compress that, you can compress that down super small because there's very few changes to remember. Basically, the codec has to memorize, oh, okay, black frame, black frame, black frame, all this, and they can shrink that down very small. Now, if you have a lot of different colors and a lot of changes, it takes more space. By doing that 2-pass encoding, it can figure out where it can optimize the video. You can get the smallest size. However, it takes a lot longer. If you want to be able to try messing around with X264 encoding, the video for Windows version of the codec you can use for rendering is out there. Also, to get MP4s to work right, a lot of times I have to use I think announced this Halley's Media Splitter, which allows me to feed MP4s into my AVISynth scripts. I use Lame, which is not an MP3 encoder is what it stands for, but what it outputs is MP3 compatible. So I'm not sure what all the terminology is there. Another thing you'll notice about a lot of these scripts is you have to Google around for the installs. I've tried to provide the links here. Apparently, in some cases, I don't understand the legality of this one way or the other. Some of these tools, you can release the source code for it, but you can't release the binary because of some weird copyright reason. If anybody's more familiar with that, get with me later. Like I said, I know how to get the videos out and rendered and put it up on my website. All the details in the background, I'm not so sure about. Oh, another thing that's really useful, sometimes you install a bunch of filters and plugins and then find out it's screwed up and you can't render video anymore. You don't know what's going on. Well, I found out after I installed the K-Lite codec pack, installed a bunch of extra codecs I didn't need. Some of them were taking over my video process and was screwing up and slowing down my final renders. So sometimes you have to go in there and figure out what's screwing things up. And there's a tool called DSF Manager, which allows you to see what video filters are installed and add and remove them, which is really nice for fixing things. My general recommendation is don't install codec packs. Install the individual codecs you think you need. The codec packs may solve some problems, but they can also cause even more. There's no tool I don't have listed on here, but I believe it's called, I'm trying to think of what it's called. There's a tool basically for visually showing you what filters, I think it's called Graph Edit. It will show you which filters are applied whenever you open up a video. And it's really nice for figuring out what might be screwing things up in the process. Okay, we're actually going to do a little bit of live demo to show how we're going to render these videos. So, let me exit out of this, and actually I'm going to show you a couple of those tools real quick. I mentioned this one. Let's see. That DSF Manager allows you to see what all filters you have installed so you can add and remove them, which is awfully nifty. And someplace in here I had Graph Edit. Now, there's a couple of versions of this. Someone has an open source version. This is Graph Studio. Microsoft's, Microsoft's DirectX SDK also has a version. But let's say I was to open up some video file in this. It would show me what it's actually using to get it all rendered. And if let's say I have one laptop that's rendering right and one that's not, I can use this as a diagnostic tool to figure out what particular little codec I have installed that might be screwing the pooch. But let's go ahead and actually do some live rendering. And I'm going to be bold and see if I can get this to work. I'm going to go with one of my more complex scripts, and I'm going to copy a few different files into directory 1, which is where I should have the videos from Skydog's earlier talk. Let me see if I got everything I need there. Oh, I don't want that one. I want this one. And I'm going to be bold and go ahead and run this and see what happens. Then I'm going to explain how it's actually working. First few seconds, you see I have an overlay of the various sponsors and friends of the conference. And it's not rendering it exactly real time here, but you see I have my corner text. I have the slides. And of course, I have the speaker. Now let's go see how I actually end up doing all that. AVISynth is a scripting language. So let's open that bad boy up. And actually, I'm going to do one other little thing. Is that just the intro of the video that you gave me, or is that the intro and Skydog's talk?
Skydog didn't have slides for the intro. So the intro you're watching had his slide up for his speech when it was going to start. So he didn't have moving slides.
So that's actually his, okay. Okay. So the reason I ask is, to simplify things, I did some text I can copy and paste. I'll show you why I'm doing this in a second. Let me close everything down so it doesn't confuse. But if anybody's wondering, I'm using Notepad++ for all my editing. As far as Windows text editors, it's nice and convenient. Okay, here's an AVISynth script. of course, familiar with most scripting language, a lot of scripting languages just use the pound symbol as a comment. And so I give some explanation in these scripts, and if anybody wants them, I think I have versions of them out on my website, but if they also want them, I can give you one. And I'll probably go ahead and link to them off of the video page whenever I post the Outerz0ne videos. Now, in this case, the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting the live audio. For whatever reason, the videos that are coming out of these, this isn't always necessary, but in this case it is. The video coming out of these VMates, the audio is somehow weird, so I have to use a special plugin. I mentioned before, the Be Happy one, and you can add that by basically going out to the AVISynth folder on your machine and copying the plugin into the plugins folder. Like a lot of other tools, it's basically the same way to install plugins. And what it allows me to do is grab the audio directly from that MP4, live MP4. Then I make another object called live vid, and I grab the video. Now, there's all sorts of parameters, and I'll link off to in a bit directions from a wiki on all the different internal functions and external functions you can add. But I use direct show. I grab the MP4 file. I tell it to use 25 frames a second and convert to 25 frames a second if it isn't already. I convert the color space to 24-bit RGB just because I'm going to be throwing other stuff that way. I just need a common way. Because if I start compositing videos or using different color spaces, it ain't happy. I dub in that live audio from before, and I do that before everything else. And you see how it's kind of got an object-oriented architecture to it, where you say, dot, do this to it, dot, do that to it, and so forth. So from left to right, these are going in order. So I dub in the audio. I probably don't need this extra convert to 25 frames per second, but I have it there anyway. Now, this trim is, I generally only mess with this first parameter, this 0. What this trim does is tell me that I can tell the AVISynth script how many frames to take off of it. For instance, sometimes these, when you're recording video, you're not going to start the slide capture at the exact time you're capturing the live person. So it'll be a few seconds off. So you got to sit there and time it. That's why I was saying in one of the earlier talks, it's nice if you have a little bit of the screen in the live part of the video so you can sync it all up. And so between this trim and the trim where I import the slides, I can adjust it and take off just the right number of frames to make it match up pretty much perfectly. Then to make everything smaller, the video coming off of these I think is like 720 by 480. I go ahead and do a Gaussian resize, and that's just one that gives me better quality when I'm doing shrinking. I think bilinear would be faster if I remember which one's which, but it doesn't give you quite as crisp a quality. And in here, most of my bottleneck seems to be the actual turning it into an XVID, not necessarily the AVI script. So I will go ahead and just do a Gaussian resize. Then, once I have that live video in the way I want it, I create another object for the slides, and I import the slides MP4. And of course, most of the same settings, 25 frames a second. Convert to mono. Why I'm doing that in the slides here, I really don't know, since I'm not getting my audio from the slides. That's probably something I had left over from a previous script. Because convert to RGB, 24-bit, and thereafter do the resize to 640 by 480, and 25 frames a second, and of course trim if I need to. Then, thereafter, I also grab the corner, and for that I use an image source, and I grab a PNG file. Now the way I've been doing these PNG files, I have a lot of code in here that's probably not necessary. Like I don't probably need to resize it since I already have it the right size. I just do it to make sure things work. I kind of have a cargo cult programming mentality when it comes to this. Throwing stuff in I don't necessarily need, but I might use in future scripts. And another function I have in here is the subtitle function, which I'm going to be using for putting the person's title in there. So I can just say Skydog, Modern Day Hacker, and I may need to get back in there and adjust that to get the right number of lines. We'll see how that actually turns out. Actually, instead, I'm going to put a new line character in there, and that's just the same as C++. And I set the halo color, so like how it glows, and the main text color. But I'm going to show you what I've been doing for images. Back out here, right now I have a PNG file, and for both the intro part that lasts for a few seconds and the corner. The way I generate those is I've been using a tool called paint.net, and the thing I like about it is it's, well, I don't know, I haven't used Photoshop enough to really be able to compare, but it does everything I need to do as far as multiple layers, transparencies, and all that. Like if I was to open up that intro, you notice how I set it up. There's a slight alpha channel to that. You may not be able to make it out on the projector, but you can slightly see through the title, and you'll see I set a transparent, alpha channeled, translucent dark color behind everybody's logo. That way it shows up when I put it on top of the slides, but you can still see behind it. And it's really nice for setting all that up. The alpha channel goes through. It's really nifty. I have multiple layers, so I can replace a title in if I want. Just makes things nice and easy to work with. And before I throw it in AVISynth, I just save it out as a PNG file. But that's all those constructed together. Now let's go back and let's look at the rest of the script before we start actually rendering it with VirtualDub. Okay, next thing I do is I start adding videos together. So this corner live plus corner, I stack vertically the live video and the corner to put them together. Then thereafter, I put the intro video. Let me see what I got here. I overlay the intro image and get that as an object. I don't actually put it in place yet. I just grab it. And then I stack horizontal the live plus corner plus the slides. Then I dub back on the live audio video, because depending on which ones you stack first, it chooses which audio to use. To make sure I'm using the live video's audio, I have to do this little step. And then finally does insert sign. Now, if I wanted to, I could take out that part and remove everything throughout the rest of the script. This info part, that's just convenient. I'm going to uncomment that for my next part just so you can see what it does. It shows you statistics and information about what kind of video you're feeding into it. It's useful for debugging your script. So I'll turn it back on. Now this is a function I found in a forum system. I got it from some guy that goes by the name of Fluff. And what it does is it overlays. And there's a lot of functions in here that I'm not as familiar with, but I know it works. So that's basically how AVISynth scripts are constructed. I'm going to save this out. And just so you can see what I mean by that info function, I uncommented it. And you'll see it gives me a bunch of info up here about what frame it's currently rendering. Oh, I just double-clicked directly on the AVS file. Yeah, that's the script file. And because I have AVISynth installed, Windows Media Player just automatically will open with it. Not all tools necessarily will. Like if I try to drag and drop this into VirtualDub, into VLC, it won't necessarily work. I'm going to go back in and take out that information thing. That basically just tells you like what kind of video you're feeding in. It's really nice for doing debugging. So I'm going to comment that out. And let's actually show you how I would render this if I was about to render it. Normally, let's see. Someplace on here I have VirtualDub. I'll fire up VirtualDub. I don't have to do it in this exact order, but it might be easiest to. I can set up how I want to do my compression. The first thing I normally do is go into audio, say full processing, because I don't want to just do a direct stream copy, and go underneath compression and set lame to use 128-bit or whatever. Also, I can go underneath video compression and set XVID to do whatever. I generally keep it at 4. You have the option of doing double pass, but for the sake of speed and the fact that I'm not hosting them myself, I usually end up having larger videos, and most people watch it via the video stream anyway. Now, making that setting every single time you load a video is a pain. So you can also save out your settings. Like you can say save processing settings. Right here I'm going to say load processing settings. And point to where I have those processing settings already saved, so it hasn't memorized. That just is a nice little step to, or a nice little thing to do to save time. Okay, I'm going to drag and drop the script into AVIDemux. And once inside AVIDemux, there I go. There's what the video would look like. There's the input. On the right is what the output would be. It's a little too big to fit on the screen. I can go in and I can choose to just encode however much. But because of how I have that script constructed, it's putting the overlay on the first few frames, so I'd miss that overlay. But I can choose how much of it to save. Another thing I might do is sit there and try to figure out how many frames I need to take out by looking at what's up on the screen here versus what's on the screen in the live video and try to sync them out to be exact. Though in this case, I don't know if you all have any of the do you have any of the screen up inside the live video on his talk?
No.
Alright, I can hopefully try to piece it together by listening to the audio and get the exact. See, that's the part that's the pain in the butt, is to get the two lined up exactly. Now, I'm assuming you hit both, record on both about the exact same time.
Roughly so.
But even then, sometimes you get off by a couple seconds. So at this point, once I have this video here, I could just, I want to unselect everything. I'll just select absolutely everything. That might be the easiest way. I do File, Save as an AVI, and I choose my desktop. Just say Outerz0ne, and for the sake of speed, let's go ahead and just render the first very small bit of his presentation. Save as an AVI, to my desktop. I'll just call it Overlay Outerz0ne AVI. And you see it's going at about 14 frames a second and increasing. That means it's going to take me longer to render it than it did to record it, because I'm actually inputting everything at 25 frames a second. But it's picking up speed as time goes along. More likely the first few frames take longer to render because I'm doing that overlay with the transparency and all that. But that's saved out in AVI. So let me close down VirtualDub. And let's go see if that AVI looks at all decent. And if I had the audio working right, I should have audio playing, but for whatever reason that's not quite. Do I not have it turned up? Actually, is the audio from this hooked up to the anything?
No, not back through the speakers.
Oh, okay, that might be why it's not playing then. Okay. But I'll do some more messing around with this in the back and make sure audio is functioning. But that's essentially what the finished video will end up looking like.
Which video feed are you pulling the audio from?
Live.
We've got it coming from slide.
That's going to be.
That's a change to the script, right?
Can we make it to where we record via the live? Because otherwise, getting lip sync is impossible.
It's actually, it should be doing both, but
It should be,
yeah.
but
That's the way Sky's got it set up.
so it should be recording audio to both.
It's recording audio to live from the first camera, and then also the slides as a backup audio.
Oh, okay, so it should be in there. For whatever reason, it's not playing right now, and I'm going to go back there and figure that out. Is something messed up there?
I'm pretty sure we're not recording audio from that.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't look like I see any audio coming in from that camera.
It's coming from. Well, continue on your presentation.
Well, that's what I have so far. So hopefully there actually will be some audio in that one eventually. I may have to have Skydog looking like he is in a kung fu film. But we'll see how that all turns out. Yeah, it's probably not going to be perfect. And then again, it's far enough away, maybe I can get away with it. One other video I'll probably show is I was doing a sniffers class last weekend, and I had a problem where one of the videos started going really kablooey on me. And let me see. I had to put a bunch of videos together to make it work. For instance, this AVISynth 2, we had a problem where in the middle of the slide recording, the video failed, and I had to replace it with an image saying, sorry, we lost this section. And the way I did that got a little bit more complicated. Let me go in here. Let me open up that sniffers class. Essentially what I had to do there is I had to take video 1 before the failure, video 2 after the failure. I put in a blank PNG that announced the information, and I looped through and put in a number of frames it took to get everything back in sync.
The video you took was from the second camera. The first camera is the one that was carrying the audio.
Oh, okay.
If you just change live to the other one of the, because there's 3.
I only have 2 on here.
I must have copied the wrong one.
Okay. But you can see here how I basically insert a blank spot to make up for that. So you can do tons of different things, and I'm not expecting people to pick up AVISynth scripting just from this talk, because there's a lot to it. But at least it gives you an idea that the language itself, just looking at that, a lot of the text is fairly easy to follow. And if you go out to the wiki page, there's plenty of examples and explanations on it. A lot of times they give the examples not with the whole semi-object-oriented form where you put a dot something, but it's still pretty easy to figure out. All right, let me go back. And a few last things. Some future work I want to work on is actually being able to render these things live. Getting everything synced up after the fact is such a pain that I'd love to be able to sit it down, have 2 cameras, and have the laptop automatically composite everything together for me. There's a few tools I found that can do that. Now, the better one I found for doing it is a Video Blaster for Windows. Unfortunately, it's not free. I'm going to say $500. It does a good job, and I had one video where I tested with it that I lost the audio, but generally it does a great job. And the nice thing about it is you can have that picture-in-a-picture, then you can like make one full screen, then switch back, and just do all sorts of weird effects. You can do something similar with the open source tool Webcam Studio for Linux. Unfortunately, it's never rendered fast enough to be practical for that. I can save out an OGG video file, but it's like a slide, well, the entire thing is like a slideshow. Person. It's written in Java. It might be one of the issues there. I'm not sure. There's mixed. I hear mixed opinions on Java and how fast it is. Depending on what you're doing, it's probably fine. I'm not sure it's fast enough for video rendering though. But it's still a neat toy to play around with. And as newer versions come out, I might be able to get faster and faster. If anybody watches this video, anybody at the conference knows of a good live compositing software that's free, let me know because I'm an incredibly cheap bastard. All right. More useful sites to look at. If you want to know more about AVISynth, of course, check out the wiki. If you want to know about all those, I've only showed a subset of all the stuff you can do with AVISynth. There's tons of filters that are built in, and tons more you can add via plugins. For video help in general, 2 great forums you can check out is Video Help and also Doom9. And finally, a few events I'd like to announce. The Louisville InfoSec, which happens every year, usually around October. I think this year they're doing it in early September. And happening just before DerbyCon, which is happening in the last weekend of September, which becomes the first weekend of October. And of course, various other conferences I go to. Haven't been to SkyDogCon yet, but I intend to, since it hasn't happened yet. Get more information from SkyDog from around the conference. HackerCon, Freaknik, go to every year. Nauticon, pretty much go to every year. And of course, it's the conference I'm currently at, so no sense in advertising it since you're already here and know about it. Finally, any questions? Do I think I'm about to be thrown off stage anyway? All right, if anybody has any questions later, decide they have to ask me, go ahead and find me at the conference, and I'll try my best to answer them.
Can you get a second? Can I get the PNG, basically your script, so I can start rendering the videos?
Sure. And does this one have the...
That one's got the one that you just handed back to me. It's just got the live. I can put the...
How about we do this? Put a copy of the ones, anything I need on here, and I'll send it back to you blank with... actually, you don't want it blank because you won't have to... You input stuff I need on that, and I'll give you the scripts.
What do you need?
I need the live video that has the audio.
That has the audio. Great.
And if mine are actually ready, I'll take mine too.
Yeah.
He was talking about me vending them live. That might be overly, optimistic.
Yeah. Well, I was